things. I had a friend named John Bowers that I was close with that lived right up here on Front Street, right by the Indian, and at 32 there. And John and I were the age that uh, we palled around. We liked to fish together. So come a weekend, of course, we'd get our poles and go down on the riverbank and see what we could catch, just for the sport of it, really. We didn't want the fish for eat. It was just there was such a wild variety that if you didn't catch a fish in the deep water, you fished in the shallower water and caught the smaller kind, the rock bass and the sunfish and the minnows and things like that. And then again, you might catch some of them and use it like minnows or something for bait for the bigger fish, and then fish way out, which had all kinds of fish. They had the carp were most impressive because they would grow huge. You take a carp and you get a 3-foot carp and you know you got them on your line. And they had eel. We had eel, and then the eel would always swallow the hook and up to them, and they had more resistance than a carp. And then they had suckers. They would run a foot long and 14 inches long, and they had a lips like a puckered up lip. And there was all kind of fish that used to come down out of the Great Lakes, just drifting down, and you get a wild variety of fish that you hadn't seen before sometimes. And of course, there was always the bass, rock bass and smallmouth bass around here, and they were worth keeping. We had a friend that used to live out on the Amsterdam Road on the south side there, and he lived up on the hill, and he had a natural spring there, and he had to fish too. A fellow named Chuck Brando, but he would catch the fish and keep them alive and throw them in a pond up there, which was a freshwater pond, spring fed. And after leaving them in there a while, they'd keep like the bass, or they'd take them in and try to eat them. They didn't taste like you would expect out of the river, which had a lot of contaminants in it, and fuel oil and sewage and such, you know. So there was things to be had for what we did at the time. Chuck was an airline pilot. I think graduated. He was older than me a little bit, and he became an airline pilot and used to have an African run and a South American run out of the upper state, and of course he was all over the place, but he used to be an interesting guy to talk to about different conditions in different parts of the world. And we had a group around that of an older group and a younger group, and we all tend to mingle together with get-togethers of one way or another. Some were drinkers, and of course some you'd meet at a bar, Union Inn or something like that.
Union Inn, where was the Union Inn?
That was on Union Street across from the A&P at the time. There was an A&P place, which is now an antique place where they sell antique parts and stuff. Yeah, I don't know even what's in there at this point. I've lost track of what's in there. And they've had the buildings that are in the various areas and these that when they've changed hands, there are more problems than they were if they would rip them down. So a lot of holes developed, and when certain ones developed, if they could expand, they would, and if they didn't, they just became parking areas. Yeah.
Speaking of buildings coming down, were there a lot of buildings that were taken down in the stockade that you remember?
Yeah, there was a lot of homes if they were too much money or to rehabilitate, they would take the building down, take it off the tax rolls.
Well, they can't do that anymore.
Well, apparently now they're going to tell you what you can do and what you can't do.
Do you feel like that when the neighborhood became a historic district? Did it change?
No, it always had that historic event, you know. That was always known as the old part of that. As a kid, uh, on one Sunday I took a ride. We went on a ride up to Vermont and something, a bunch of us together in a car I had. And when we came back, the Dutch Reformed Church was on fire. It had caught fire, and the steeple was burning away, and the clock was ticking away up there. And that was quite an event to see that. And then the steeple came down inside the church, and that became a project up there for the church to
How did the fire
rebuild that.
How did the fire start? Do you know?
I don't know if I ever listened to the determination of how it started or not. I don't recall.
So what year would that have been?
Boy, that was back in the 40s. Does 44 or 45 sound right? I'm not sure. I'd have to check on that. Yeah. But the people moved in and out, and they had the old homes, and some were rehabilitated, and some just rent for temporary rentals, and various elements that moved around. We had a city manager, moved down on Union Street there. She had a home down there for a while. And we had another city manager back when Mills Tonight was mayor, had property over on Washington Avenue. And they would move into an area and acclimate themselves to things accordingly.
Was it?
Yeah, such as that.
One person we talked to said that Union Street was known as Doctor's Alley or something. There was a lot of
Doctor's Row.
Row.
No, that was Knott Street.
Oh.
I was referring to Knott Street, I think, at that time. Because my father-in-law was in practice there, and he was at 905 Knott. And then next to him was Joe DeBlaze. And next to him was another doctor, which was a car buff. He had some nicer vehicles. And then up above him was a dentist, which was a relative of DeBlaze. And it's just as you went up the streets, you got different ones there. You got up to Drago. There was Drago up above that. And then you had the dentist up there. They had built that dentist thing on the corner of Wendell, and had a bunch of dentists in there. And we had various other ones. Maybe I don't remember all of them really.
I thought it was Union Street.
No, well, Union. There was a lot of Union on Union Street too. You got everything coming up church there. Had little offices, whether they were doctors or dentists. They had an office usually. Yeah, they were on the lower section, and they were scattered so many of them. It's hard to remember them all. But I get an old timer, then I'll remember them. Whatever.
Well, anything else?
Well, there's a lot of things. I just probably can't think of them at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm at that point that.
Well, this has nothing to do with the stockade, but I would love to have it recorded.
Recorded, huh?
Just you remember, you told me when your grandfather was traveling around on the ship, when he ran away, left home at 16, and he traveled the world.
Right, yeah.
The story he told you as a little boy of being shipwrecked on an island or something. They were.
Was what?
Where there was a shipwreck, and he ended up on an island.
Oh, yeah, yeah. He was on a sailing ship that was carrying coal in one of his ventures around the world. And they were on the Indian Ocean at the time. And the coal caught fire, and they tried to put it out for a number of days, and they weren't successful. They kept burning. And of course, it eventually and then they had to abandon ship. And so they went to the life boats and all headed for the mainland of Africa on the eastern side. And they were in the lifeboat uh, hoping to sight land. And they ran out of food and water. And so it uh, got to a point that they had to resort to cannibalism. That means someone drew straws, and you draw the short stick, you're the one they're going to be eating. Which sounds real weird, but you can conceive what that happened if you were alone if you were alone in the Indian Ocean, and you had nothing but a horizon of water, and you didn't have anything to eat. It became a problem. So, and he had drawn the short straw, and he was going to be the one that they were going to consume. I don't know how they consume it. I suppose they kill you and they cut up the body and do what they can with it. But that happened, and not soon after that happened, they sighted the land on the horizon. So they gave up that part of it and eventually tried to get toward land in a hurry and row over, and so he got saved. He didn't get eaten, as is well known. But that's just one of the experiences. And this travels around the world.
But then when he got to land.
Then they got to land. I think they made land, and they got to land, and they got to a shore where they found edible food. Whether it was coconuts or whatever that was in the area that they could eat. And that's where the story ended for him telling me about it. I didn't get any more out of that.
Didn't you tell me about then? Didn't they meet natives there?
The what?
Didn't they meet natives who lived on where they ended up?
Yeah, well, they waited on Enders and stuff too, where they lived. Had to live in when he was active in what was what they called the Boer War in India, where they had the uprising and stuff, and he went in there as a medic, and he got involved with somebody, and he got captured, and they cut his tongue. They didn't sever it completely, but they just cut it with a knife, see. And a native there that was taken in the group there put a piece of stick into the tongue and put the tongue back on and held on till it healed. And he still had that thick tongue. As I knew him as my grandfather, he had a thick tongue, and it was held in place with a piece of bamboo stick in there that just held it back on till it healed. If you can imagine such a thing. I mean, it's weird. And then he had other strange experiences too. When he was there, they lived in an area where they had the man-eating plants. I'd say, what the hell's a man-eating plant? It's a big plant with a big bush and it's like a big pod that opens and closes with the daylight or the weather, And it would open up, and it would catch rodents or whatever, insects and stuff. And when they'd get in there, there was like something that attracted them, and then the thing would close up, and it would close up and digest you. And if you had something with bones, when it opened up, it spit the bones out. So he he discovered that, or related that in stories. Yeah, uh, he didn't get caught at all, but he had seen these plants where they, after they had consumed something and it opened up, whether it was a small animal or what, uh, would the bones would come out, and then they and then you get near it and it gets in and the thing would close up, and so a man-eating plant. That's what it was. Yeah. So these stories, we're all hey, great stories to listen to as a youngster. What the hell?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
So is that what made you join the Navy then?
Yeah,
They said,
sure.
where you want to go? I said, I'm going on a boat.
Yeah, I want to be near the source of food. Yeah, yeah. I don't know anybody out in the ocean with nothing to eat, and all those fish below you, and the sharks circling around you, wait for you to come in. Right, right. No, very true.
What did you do, Peter, after the war? What was your profession?
Well, I went back to school, got my diploma, and then I took an on-the-job training course with the Union Star. They were hiring help in their advertising department. And so I went down there as a veteran and looking for employment. And so they hired me and put me to work in basic advertising, which was the mat room, where the advertising department gets all their mats and stuff for making up their ads. They have to make their own ads for their own customers. And this is a room where they keep all this stuff on file. And you have to know where it is. So a salesman would send in what he needed, and you'd get it and send it back out to him, and he'd make up his own ad. So they had to make proofs in the printing room to make up the ad, and then the proof would have to be taken to the subscriber, and he'd make his alterations or corrections on it. And then again, you were a messenger for that, and running back and forth to the different people running different ads, and just to do that type of, to learn that end of the business. And from the mat room, they had an opening in classified. Now, classifieds didn't have any mats to speak of. They just had all that back end of the paper where they had all the different sections for houses and automobiles for sale and various other obituaries and all that miscellaneous stuff in the classified section. So I was working in there as a classified salesman for a while, and had my own accounts. Real estate people, I had a lot of them. I'd go to them. They'd have a piece of property for sale, a house or something like that, and we'd get the data and make up an ad, make a proof, run the proof to them. They'd okay it, would run it, and if they liked it, it ran for a while, and if it was successful, it got sold. And so it's calling on all these real estate people in the area downtown. A lot of them were on State Street, Barrett Street, and they had offices there, Lafayette Street, to handle that phase of it, to learn that phase of the operation. Yeah. So I was with them for a while when a guy came up from New York that ran a paper down there, and he opened up a tabloid in the area. Tabloid paper, a small printed paper, much like the Stockade Spy, that's all it was, that size, and would open up looking for advertising, for what I ever get for the place. So he had a paper in Mechanicville, and he had a paper in Ballston Spa. He had a paper in Scotia. He had one in I think he had one in Amsterdam too. But anyway, I got involved with that. And this was in its infancy, and the guy was hiring it. So a couple of us left the paper and went with him. So I was I would have to run over to Mechanicville a lot, and Scotia, and What was the other one I said? Balls and Spa. Yeah. Uh,
Were you-
and I was with them for a while, and until what happened then?
did you
I got a
work-
call back from someplace.
You worked for the hotel for a while?
I went with the hotel during a time, when they were in their late infancies. Yeah, there was an ad there for a desk clerk, and I went down and got the job and became a desk clerk at the Hotel Van Curler, and then I worked into head of that department, and then to an assistant manager. And by that time, had gone many years, and the college was going to convert the hotel to a college, and the board of directors were making their mind up on what to do. So they finally decided that they were going to make a college out of it, and so I left there and went off to work for. Where'd I go? Alco, I think. Did I go to Alco? I think I went to Alco. Because they were on and off. They have a contract, you work, got good money, and that's it. And you stay there, and then take a little time off while they got another contract. Or if they had another one, they moved right into it. Oh, well, they had the M47. They were building the M47 tanks then.
Thanks, right.
All right, that's when they were moving down there, and I got and then when that basically came to Schenectady, I got one of the first jobs down there as in quality control, and worked on the turret line where they were putting the 90 millimeters into these turrets, and putting all the rangefinders and all the equipment in them, and getting them all ready for the hull. The hull came down another line, and they were putting the motors in them, and then at the end of the turret line and the whole line, the lines met, then mount the turret into the hull, and then drive it out the door into Knott Street, and then take it up to the test track on Niskayuna, and run them up there on see everything was put together right. Yeah. So, and that was a lucrative paying job, of course, and incentive. What the hell? We all need money.
That was through the 50s?
Yeah, that was when they were doing that. Yeah, and it was on and off for about 6 years, if I recall right. And then they stopped making them, and they went back to a locomotive production, and they were getting contracts for foreign aid. They were making locomotives for India, make a bunch of them, Pakistan, Spain, and these are all locomotives that had different things that were a challenge, of course. Not all those tracks were the same gauge.
Right.
They'd have to put tracks under these things that were for the gauge of where they're going to, or where they could remove them and run them so far and then change the undercarriage, which was an interesting work and stuff, and we would pay, and it was walking distance, and it was great. Yeah. So you get experience in various things, in various ways, in various times, and it was too bad it all had to go down the tube. Then as you begin laying off of the lack of work, you would downsize. If you had seniority, you could bump somebody that had lesser seniority on another part of the plant, and take their job for a while until you got bumped by somebody else with the same problem. And yeah, so that way I got to be in various procedures and stuff of the ALCO and various stages of the locomotive building. Yeah. And well, another experience.
So then you raised your family, then that's what you did? You raised your family here, in this house here?
Basically, yeah. My boys were born 2 years apart, and the first one was, I got married in June, and the first one came along in March. So I just made it under the 8th month.
That's how I do that.
Yeah, well, we like to think that way. You know, what are you going to do? And then the next one was 2 years later, yeah. So they both happened to be boys. And my father-in-law was a physician. And of course, they lived on Knott Street. And so when we had the boys, my mother-in-law and father-grandmother would like to have the kids and spend the weekend with them. So they'd go up either on a Friday night or a Saturday and stay till Sunday, and they would have them, and that would give the wife and I free time to do what we wanted, you know. So we always went out to eat on the weekends, or went to the movies. We liked the movies. We'd go to the art theater in Scotia or the local theaters and times and different places, and dine and eat according to what we had in mind. And then we got involved with dancing groups. So we became a member of the Cotillion and the other group. The Cotillion was a formal group where you dress formally. And the other group, the Allegro, they called it, was another group where it wasn't formal, but they had so many dances a year and dinners and stuff. And